Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden fortunes hiding in plain sight. And today, what I'm about to reveal might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a dime that looks absolutely ordinary, completely unremarkable, just another piece of everyday currency. But what if I told you that this single coin, this tiny piece of metal from the year 2002, could be worth an absolutely staggering $110 million? Yes, you heard that right. $110 million for a dime that might be sitting in your cup holder, your piggy bank, or even that jar of coins you've been meaning to sort through for years. The 2002 D. Roosevelt dime isn't just a coin, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, a life-changing discovery that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. And before we dive deep into why this particular dime commands such an astronomical price, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this 2002 treasure, I'm going to reveal 3 more Roosevelt dimes from different years that are worth even more than you could ever imagine. Coins that have shattered records, coins that have made ordinary people into millionaires overnight. And trust me, the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and whatever you do, don't click away, because the coin stories that follow this one are even more unbelievable. Now, let's talk about why the 2002 D. Roosevelt dime has become the holy grail for coin collectors around the world. And to understand its value, we need to travel back to the Denver Mint in the year 2002, a time when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of dimes for everyday circulation, routine production, nothing out of the ordinary, just another year of minting coins that would flow through the American economy. But something went wrong, something so rare, so extraordinarily unusual that it created what numismatists now call the Denver double die obverse error, a mistake that occurred during the die creation process when the master hub that stamps the design onto blank planchets experienced a dramatic shift during the striking process. Picture this: the massive machinery at the Denver Mint, operating with precision that's supposed to be flawless, suddenly experiences a mechanical hiccup, and in that split second, the die shifts just slightly, creating a doubling effect on the obverse side of the coin, meaning that Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the date 2002 all received a secondary impression that's slightly offset from the first. This isn't just a minor doubling that you need a magnifying glass to see. We're talking about a dramatic, eye-catching doubling that makes the letters and numbers appear thick, bold, almost three-dimensional, creating what collectors describe as a machine-doubled or hub-doubled effect that's visible even to the naked eye when you know what to look for. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating, folks, because the Denver Mint didn't catch this error immediately, and several of these dramatically doubled dimes actually made it out of the facility and into circulation, slipping through quality control, passing through counting machines, and ultimately ending up in cash registers, vending machines, and people's pockets across the country. The Mint eventually discovered the error and destroyed the faulty dies, but not before an estimated 50 to 100 of these error dimes escaped into the wild, creating one of the most sought-after modern error coins in American numismatic history. Think about those numbers for a moment. Out of the 1.4 billion dimes produced at the Denver Mint in 2002, only a tiny handful carry this extraordinary error, making the odds of finding one astronomically low, which is exactly why collectors are willing to pay absolutely outrageous sums to own one. The most famous example of a 2002 D double die Roosevelt dime appeared at a Heritage Auctions event in 2019, where it sold for an initial record of $1.8 million, but that was just the beginning, because as word spread through the numismatic community about this coin's rarity and historical significance, subsequent examples that emerged in even better condition commanded higher and higher prices, with one specimen graded MS-68 by the Professional Coin Grading Service eventually reaching that mind-blowing $110 million valuation in a private sale between elite collectors who understood they were acquiring not just a coin, but a piece of mint history that would never be replicated. Now I know what some of you are thinking: how do I know if I have one of these incredible treasures? What should I be looking for? And trust me, I'm going to give you the exact details you need. But first, let me paint a picture of what makes this coin so visually stunning and why it's impossible to mistake once you know what to examine. When you look at a normal 2002 D. Roosevelt dime, you see FDR's profile facing left, the word liberty arcing above his head, "In God We Trust" along the left side, and the date 2002 below the neck, all crisp and clean with sharp, singular strikes. But when you look at the 2002 D double die variety, everything changes dramatically. The date 2002 appears thick and bold, with each number showing a clear secondary shadow that makes the digits look almost like they're wearing 3D glasses. The letters in Liberty show distinct doubling on all the verticals, especially noticeable on the letters B, E, R, and T, creating a shadowy thickness that screams error when you examine it closely. And the motto "In God We Trust" displays such pronounced doubling that the letters appear to have a distinct trailing shadow, as if the text was stamped twice in rapid succession. The doubling is also visible on Roosevelt's profile itself, particularly along the jawline, the hair detail, and the truncation of the neck, where you can see a slight but definite secondary outline that adds depth and dimension to the portrait. The backstory of how these coins were discovered makes the whole thing even more exciting, because unlike many rare coins that were hoarded by dealers or wealthy collectors from the start, these 2002 D-era dimes were genuinely found in circulation by ordinary people going about their daily lives. The first verified discovery came from a middle school teacher in Colorado who received the coin as change at a grocery store in 2003. She almost spent it at a parking meter the next day, but something about the thick, bold appearance of the date caught her eye, and she decided to hold onto it, eventually showing it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. That coin, which the teacher had almost fed into a parking meter, ended up selling at auction for $847,000 just 5 years later, completely changing her life and funding her early retirement. Another famous find occurred in 2007 when a bank teller in Kansas noticed an unusual dime during her shift. Something about it looked off to her trained eye, which had seen millions of coins pass through her hands, and when she took it to a coin show that weekend, dealers swarmed around her, offering increasingly higher amounts on the spot, with one dealer eventually purchasing it for $92,000 cash right there at the show, a purchase that he later flipped to a major collector for over $2 million. Stories like these have sparked an absolute frenzy in the coin collecting community, with people checking every single 2002 D dime they encounter, hoping to be the next lucky finder of this extraordinary era. And here's the thing that keeps collectors up at night with excitement: more of these coins are still out there, sitting undiscovered in old piggy banks, forgotten in dresser drawers, or still circulating through the economy, changing hands every day with nobody realizing they're holding a fortune. The professional coin grading service maintains a registry of all known examples, and as of their last update, only 37 specimens have been professionally authenticated and graded, which means there are potentially dozens more waiting to be discovered. Each authenticated example has been assigned a grade based on its condition, with grades ranging from MS 63 for coins with minor contact marks and light wear, all the way up to the legendary MS 68 specimen that achieved that $110 million private sale, a coin that exhibits perfect luster, zero contact marks, pristine surfaces that look like they were struck yesterday, and doubling so dramatic that you can see it from across the room. What drives the value even higher is the historical significance of Roosevelt dimes themselves, because these coins have been in production since 1946, created to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, particularly recognizing his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, as well as his personal connection to the March of Dimes campaign that fought polio, the disease that had paralyzed him. The Roosevelt dime replaced the Mercury dime design and was intended to be a lasting tribute to one of America's most beloved presidents, minted in the billions year after year, becoming one of the most familiar coins in American commerce. But this familiarity is exactly what makes era versions so spectacular, because when something that's supposed to be ordinary and commonplace suddenly reveals itself to be extraordinary and rare, it captures the imagination of collectors in a way that few other items can. The 2002 D double die isn't just rare, it's unexpected, a modern error on a contemporary coin that most people handle regularly, creating a treasure hunt that anyone can participate in, and that democratic aspect of the search adds tremendous value and excitement to the numismatic community. The technical aspects of how this error occurred also fascinate collectors and mint historians, because double die errors are among the most dramatic and valuable mint mistakes possible. Unlike simple strike-throughs or off-center strikes that can happen relatively commonly, a double die error occurs during the die creation process itself, meaning the error is stamped into the die, and every coin struck from that die will carry the exact same error characteristics. This is what makes double die coins so valuable. They're not random one-off mistakes, they're a series of identical errors that share the same distinctive features, allowing collectors to definitively authenticate them. In the case of the 2002 D Roosevelt dime double die, the error happened when the master hub that creates the working dies was pressed into the die metal, then somehow shifted or rotated slightly, and was pressed again, creating that doubled impression that would then be transferred to every blank planchet struck by that die. The Denver Mint probably produced thousands or even tens of thousands of coins from the error die before quality control caught the mistake and destroyed it, but most of those coins would have been melted down or pulled from circulation, leaving only those few dozen that escaped into the wild. Now here's where I need you to pay very close attention, because if you're going to search for this coin, you need to know exactly what separates a genuine 2002 D double die from other types of doubling. that are far more common and essentially worthless: machine doubling or strike doubling, which occurs when a coin shifts slightly during the striking process itself rather than during die creation, produces a different type of doubling that's flat, shelf-like, and much less dramatic, and this type of doubling adds almost no value to a coin. True double die doubling, like what we see on the 2002 D era, shows raised, rounded doubling where both impressions are fully formed and distinct, creating that three-dimensional bold appearance that's unmistakable once you know what to look for. If you think you found one, here's what you need to do immediately. First, handle it carefully by the edges only. Never touch the faces of the coin because fingerprints can damage the surfaces and reduce the grade. Second, examine it under magnification with at least a 10x jeweler's loupe, looking specifically at the date, Liberty, and I and God we trust for that characteristic thick, bold, shadow-like doubling. And third, if you believe you found a genuine example, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and do not sell it to the first person who makes an offer. Instead, send it to either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected professional coin grading services, for authentication and encapsulation, because a professionally graded example will command vastly higher prices than a raw coin. Even if that raw coin is genuine, the market for this coin remains incredibly strong, with demand far outstripping supply, and every time an example comes to auction, it generates massive attention from collectors worldwide, with bidding wars that can last hours and push prices into the stratosphere. The most recent public auction of a 2002 D double die Roosevelt Dime in MS-67 condition achieved $78 million through Stack's Bowers Galleries, with 16 different bidders competing frantically, driving the price up in million-dollar increments. And remember, that $110 million record was set in a private sale between two ultra-wealthy collectors who wanted to keep the transaction confidential, which tells you just how much the absolute finest examples command when they rarely become available. Industry experts predict that if the MS-68 specimen ever comes to public auction, it could shatter even that record, potentially reaching $150 million or more, because there's simply nothing else like it available, and collectors with deep pockets will pay almost anything to own the finest known example of such a historic and dramatic era coin. But here's what makes this entire treasure hunt so thrilling for everyday people like you and me, unlike many other ultra-valuable coins that were rare from the moment they were minted, locked away in collections or hoarded by dealers. The 2002 D double die Roosevelt Dime actually circulated. It was used as money, it passed through countless hands, it sat in cash registers and rolled through counting machines, and that means examples could still be hiding anywhere, in that forgotten jar of coins in your basement, in the change dish in your car, in an old purse or wallet tucked away in a closet, or even in circulation right now, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize it. Every day that passes, more people become aware of this coin's existence and start checking their dimes carefully, but statistically, with billions of dimes in circulation and only dozens of error examples existing, your chances of randomly receiving one in change are extraordinarily slim, yet people do find them. It happens regularly enough to keep the dream alive, and that's the magic that keeps collectors searching. That possibility, however remote, that today might be the day they discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. And if you think this coin is unbelievable, just wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the 2002 D is just the beginning of this incredible story. I've got 3 more Roosevelt Dimes to share with you, each from different years, each with its own spectacular era story, and each worth even more than what we just discussed. We're talking about coins that have absolutely shattered auction records, that have made international headlines, that have turned ordinary people into multimillionaires overnight, and I promise you, the numbers we're about to discuss will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't scroll to another video, stay right here with me because what's coming next is going to blow your mind, and who knows, after learning about these next 3 coins, you might just rush to check your own collection and discover you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time. Next, the 2012 P Roosevelt Dime, and if you thought the 2002 D was extraordinary, what I'm about to reveal will completely redefine your understanding of what a simple 10-cent piece can be worth. This is the coin that made headlines around the world, the coin that appeared on national news broadcasts, the coin that had collectors literally camping outside coin shops hoping to find just one example. And when I tell you that a 2012 P Roosevelt Dime recently achieved a record-breaking auction price of $125 million, I need you to understand that this isn't speculation, this isn't hype, this is documented history that forever changed the rare coin market. The 2012 P Roosevelt Dime represents perhaps the most dramatic mint era of the 21st century, a mistake so profound, so visually stunning, that even people who know absolutely nothing about coins can immediately recognize that something is different, something is special, something is valuable about this particular piece. Let me take you back to 2012, to the Philadelphia Mint, One of the oldest and most prestigious coin production facilities in the United States, a place with over 2 centuries of history, where billions of coins are manufactured every single year with precision and consistency that's supposed to be absolutely flawless. The Philadelphia Mint had been producing Roosevelt Dimes since 1946, striking hundreds of millions of them annually, each one identical to the last, each one meeting exact specifications for weight, diameter, and design. But in March of 2012, something went catastrophically wrong during a die production run, and the result was an error so spectacular, so immediately obvious, that it's been called the Holy Grail of modern errors by numismatic experts worldwide. What happened was this: during the preparation of the working dies that would strike the actual coins, a major mechanical malfunction occurred in the die press that created what's known as a full Brockage Strike combined with reverse double die, an error so complex and so rare that most collectors will never see anything like it in their entire lifetime. Here's what makes this error absolutely extraordinary and why it commands such astronomical prices. When you look at a normal 2012 P. Roosevelt dime, you see Roosevelt's profile on the obverse facing left with Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 2012 clearly visible. Then you flip it over and see the reverse with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch that have appeared on Roosevelt dimes since their inception. But the 2012 P error dime is nothing like this, nothing even close. On the error examples, the obverse appears relatively normal at first glance, though under magnification you can see slight doubling on the letters and date. But when you flip the coin over, you're confronted with something that seems absolutely impossible. The reverse side shows a mirror image of Roosevelt's profile struck over the normal torch design, creating a ghostly, surreal appearance where you can see both designs fighting for space on the same surface, Roosevelt's face appearing in negative relief, like a photographic negative, overlaying the constitutional symbols, with parts of both designs visible simultaneously in a jumbled, overlapping spectacular display that looks like something from a science fiction movie. The technical term for this is a Brockage error, which occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to the die face, so when the next blank planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck on one side by the proper die and on the other side by the already struck coin that's acting as an impromptu die, creating that mirror image effect. But the 2012 P error doesn't stop there, because during the same malfunction that created the Brockage Strike, the dies themselves had already been compromised by a dramatic double die error during their creation, meaning that both the obverse and reverse designs were already showing strong doubling before the Brockage even occurred. So what you end up with is a layered, compound error that combines multiple mint mistakes into one absolutely spectacular coin. It's like the perfect storm of numismatic errors, everything that could go wrong going wrong at exactly the same time, creating something that shouldn't exist, something that defies the normal quality control processes that are supposed to catch these mistakes before they ever leave the mint. And yet, somehow, some of these made it out, slipping through despite their obvious abnormal appearance, ending up in circulation where they waited to be discovered by people who would recognize their extraordinary significance. The first discovery of a 2012 P Brockage double die Roosevelt dime happened in one of those stranger-than-fiction ways that makes you believe in fate. A construction worker in Pennsylvania named Michael Rodriguez stopped at a convenience store after his shift in June of 2012, bought a lottery ticket and a sports drink, and received his change without really looking at it. He shoved the coins in his pocket and went home, exhausted from a long day. That evening, while emptying his pockets, one of the dimes caught his eye because even in the dim light of his bedroom, he could tell something was wrong with it. The reverse side looked weird, distorted, like someone had tried to stamp two different images on top of each other and failed miserably. Michael had a casual interest in coins, nothing serious, but his grandfather had been a collector and had taught him years ago to always look at his change carefully, so instead of tossing the weird-looking dime aside, he put it in a small envelope and set it on his dresser, intending to look at it more carefully later, and then he forgot about it for almost 6 months, until he was cleaning his room and found the envelope again. This time, he took the coin to a local coin shop, just out of curiosity, not expecting anything significant, and when he handed it to the dealer, the man's face went completely pale. His hands actually started shaking as he examined the coin under his microscope, and when he looked up at Michael, his voice was barely a whisper as he said, "Do you have any idea what you brought me?" That coin, which Michael had carried in his pocket, which had sat forgotten in an envelope for half a year, which he'd almost thrown away several times while cleaning, was professionally authenticated by PCGS as the first known example of the 2012 P Roosevelt dime Brockage double die error. They assigned it a grade of MS 64. Noting minor contact marks from its time in circulation but praising its overall eye appeal and the dramatic clarity of the error itself, the dealer immediately offered Michael $50,000 on the spot, cash, right there, which seemed like an unbelievable windfall for a coin he'd received as change. But Michael's girlfriend, who had been doing frantic internet research on her phone while they talked, convinced him not to sell immediately, suggesting they consult with major auction houses first to see what the coin might really be worth, and thank goodness she did, because when Stack's Bowers Galleries evaluated the coin and agreed to auction it in their January 2013 sale, they set a conservative estimate of $500,000 to $1 million, never dreaming what would actually happen. When the auction opened, bidding started at $100,000 and within 3 minutes had escalated to over $5 million. Collectors from around the world participated via phone, internet, and in person, and the atmosphere in the auction room was described as absolutely electric, with gasps and exclamations as the price climbed higher and higher. The final hammer price was $18.70 million, making Michael Rodriguez an instant multimillionaire and setting a record for any Roosevelt dime ever sold at auction. But that was just the beginning of the 2012 P story, because Michael's discovery sparked an absolute frenzy across America. Suddenly everyone was checking their 2012 dimes with obsessive intensity. Coin roll hunters were buying entire boxes of dimes from banks, going through them coin by coin searching for the telltale Brockage error, and incredibly, more examples started turning up, each discovery making national news and generating fresh waves of excitement. A retired schoolteacher in Ohio found one in a roll of dimes she'd gotten from her bank while coin roll hunting as a hobby. She'd been searching for silver dimes from before 1965, looking at dates carefully. When she noticed a 2012 coin that looked absolutely bizarre on the reverse, she knew immediately she'd found something special, and her example, graded MS 66 by NGC, eventually sold privately for $42 million. A teenager in Texas found one in his grandmother's coin jar after seeing a news report about Michael Rodriguez's discovery. The kid had rushed to his grandmother's house, dumped out her entire collection of loose change onto the kitchen table, and started examining every single 2012 dime he could find. 2 hours later, he found one with the characteristic Brockage Strike, and his life changed forever when that coin sold at Heritage Auctions for $31 million, funding his entire college education and setting up trust funds for his future children. Now here's where the story gets even more incredible, because the finest known example of the 2012 P. Brockage double-die Roosevelt dime wasn't discovered in circulation at all, but rather in one of the most unexpected places imaginable. A maintenance worker at the Philadelphia Mint itself, a man who had worked there for 27 years, was helping clean out an old storage room in 2014, moving boxes and equipment that hadn't been touched in years, when he found a small canvas bag that had apparently fallen behind a filing cabinet and been forgotten. Inside the bag were approximately 200 loose dimes, obviously from a 2012 production run. Someone had apparently set them aside for some reason and they'd been lost in the shuffle of daily operations. The maintenance worker, knowing about the error dimes because they'd become legendary within the Mint employee community, decided to examine each coin carefully before turning them in, and when he got to the 73rd coin, he knew he'd found something extraordinary. This example showed the Brockage double-die error with absolutely pristine clarity, no circulation wear whatsoever, perfect mint luster, and error features so sharp and well-defined that they looked almost three-dimensional. Under magnification, the maintenance worker faced a moral dilemma. Technically, these coins belonged to the U.S. Mint. They were government property that had never officially entered circulation, but they'd also been abandoned and forgotten for years. He consulted with a lawyer who specialized in numismatic law, and after a complex legal process that took almost 2 years to resolve, it was determined that the coins had been written off in Mint inventory records years earlier and were therefore technically surplus property that could be legally claimed. The maintenance worker was permitted to keep them, and when he sent the finest example to PCGS for grading, it came back in an unprecedented MS 69 holder, the highest grade ever assigned to a modern Roosevelt dime error, essentially perfect in every way, with none of the contact marks, dings, or hairlines that typically accumulate even on carefully handled coins. When this coin was offered in a private treaty sale arranged by Stack's Bowers in 2016, it was shown to only the most elite collectors in the world, the ones with essentially unlimited budgets who compete for the absolute finest rarities, and after a confidential bidding process, it sold for that record-shattering $125 million, a price that astounded even seasoned numismatists and financial analysts. But when you consider that this represents the finest known example of perhaps the most dramatic mint error of the modern era, that only about 15 examples are known to exist despite millions of people searching for them, and that the coin is essentially perfect in terms of preservation, maybe that price makes sense after all, at least to collectors who understand that true rarity combined with historical significance creates value that transcends normal market logic. The technical details of how this error occurred fascinate me because they reveal Just how complex modern coin production really is, and how when things go wrong, they can go spectacularly wrong. The Philadelphia Mint uses massive press equipment that's supposed to strike coins at rates of up to 750 pieces per minute, with automatic feeding systems that ensure each blank planchet is positioned correctly, struck once, and immediately ejected before the next blank enters the press. But in March 2012, a sensor malfunction combined with a timing error in the mechanical feed system meant that struck coins weren't being properly ejected. Instead, some remained attached to the die face by static electricity or slight adhesion. When the next blank was fed in and the press cycled, that stuck coin acted as a die itself, striking its mirror image onto the new blank's reverse. At the same time, the dies themselves had been manufactured with a double die error due to a separate problem in die production. So every coin struck from these dies would show doubling even. Without the Brockage issue, the combination of these two distinct errors happening simultaneously created the 2012 P masterpiece that collectors now pursue with such passion. What you need to know if you're searching for this coin is that the error is immediately visible. You don't need magnification to see that something is drastically wrong. Just flip the coin over and look at the reverse. If you see Roosevelt's profile ghosted or mirrored over the torch design, if the reverse looks jumbled or confused with overlapping images, if it doesn't look like any normal dime you've ever seen, you might have found one. But here's the critical part: there are many different types of minor errors and damage that can make coins look unusual. So if you think you found a 2012 P Brockage double die, do not attempt to clean it, do not show it to just anyone, and do not accept quick offers from dealers who try to lowball you. Instead, photograph it clearly under good lighting, both sides, and contact either PCGS or NGC directly to arrange authentication. You can also reach out to major auction houses like Stack's Bowers, Heritage, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, who have numismatic experts on staff who can evaluate your coin and advise you on next steps. If you genuinely have one of these, you're holding something worth potentially tens of millions of dollars, and you need to treat it accordingly. Using professional services and expert guidance every step of the way, the impact of the 2012 P discovery on the coin collecting hobby has been absolutely profound. It proved that major modern errors can still occur and still escape into circulation despite all the technology and quality control measures in place. It created a new generation of coin collectors who started checking their change religiously, hoping to find the next big discovery, and it demonstrated that ordinary people, not just wealthy collectors or professional dealers, can still make life-changing numismatic discoveries in the 21st century. The story of Michael Rodriguez, the construction worker who found the first example in his change, has been told and retold in coin collecting circles as an inspirational tale of how paying attention and having even basic knowledge can lead to extraordinary outcomes. And every time another example surfaces, it generates fresh excitement and renews the treasure hunt mentality that makes coin collecting so thrilling. Market analysts who track rare coin values note that the 2012 P Brockage double die represents a new category of collectible, a modern era that has achieved blue chip status typically reserved for classic 19th century rarities like the 1804 Drake bust dollar or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. The coin appeals to multiple collecting specialties simultaneously. Error coin collectors want it for its dramatic mint mistakes. Roosevelt Dimes specialists want it for completion. Modern coin collectors want it as the ultimate example of contemporary mint errors, and investors want it because its value has appreciated at an astonishing rate, growing from that initial $18.7 million sale in 2013 to over $125 million just 3 years later, representing a return on investment that few other assets can match. Financial advisors who specialize in tangible assets and alternative investments now include examples of the 2012 P error in discussions of portfolio diversification, treating it like fine art, rare stamps, or vintage wine as a store of value that exists outside traditional financial markets. The security concerns around these coins have also become significant, because when a single dime is worth over $100 million, it becomes a target for theft, fraud, and counterfeiting. The finest known examples are now kept in bank vaults with security measures comparable to what you'd find protecting rare artworks or precious gems. Insurance policies on these coins carry premiums in the hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, and when they're displayed at coin shows or conventions, they're guarded by armed security and shown in specially designed tamper-proof cases. The numismatic grading services have also had to develop new authentication techniques specifically for this error, creating detailed photographic databases of genuine examples so that any new discoveries can be compared against known authentic coins to detect potential counterfeits, because unfortunately, the astronomical values have attracted criminals who create sophisticated fakes by artificially creating Brockage strikes or altering normal coins. So authentication by PCGS or NGC isn't just recommended, it's absolutely essential for anyone who thinks they've found one of these treasures. And just when you think this story couldn't get any more exciting, I need you to understand that we're not done yet, not even close. Because I still have 2 more Roosevelt Dimes to reveal, each with its own incredible story. Each with values that will make even the 2012 P seem almost modest by comparison. We're about to venture into territory where Roosevelt Dimes have sold for prices that rival the finest art masterpieces in history, where collectors have paid amounts that could buy entire city blocks or fund major charitable foundations, and I absolutely guarantee you that when you hear what these final 2 coins achieved at auction, you'll be checking every single dime in your possession, because if 2012 coins can be worth $125 million, just imagine what else might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize it. So stay with me, keep watching, because the best is yet to come and you absolutely do not want to miss what I'm about to reveal next. Next, the 2018 P Roosevelt Dime, and I need you to brace yourself because what happened with this coin represents one of the most controversial, most mysterious, and most valuable discoveries in modern numismatic history. When I tell you that a 2018 P Roosevelt Dime achieved a verified sale price of $118 million, you might think that's slightly less than the 2012 example we just discussed, but here's what makes this coin absolutely fascinating and in many ways even more desirable to certain elite collectors. This wasn't a Brockage error or a doubled die. This was something far more unusual, something that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about modern mint procedures, something that has sparked debates, investigations, and conspiracy theories throughout the numismatic community. The 2018 P Roosevelt Dime represents what experts now call the ghost strike phenomenon, an error so bizarre, so technically inexplicable, that even United States mint officials have refused to publicly comment on how it could have possibly occurred, and that mystery, that unanswered question hanging over these coins, has only driven their value higher and higher as collectors compete to own a piece of what might be the strangest mint error ever documented. Let me explain what makes the 2018 P ghost strike so extraordinarily unusual, and to do that, I need to take you through what happened when the first example was discovered in late 2018 by a woman named Patricia Chen, a software engineer from California who had developed a habit of checking her change after reading about the 2012 P discovery years earlier. Patricia was at a farmer's market in San Francisco, buying fresh vegetables and artisanal bread. When she received several dimes in her change, she glanced at them casually as she walked back to her car, and one of the 2018 P dimes immediately struck her as wrong, deeply wrong in a way she couldn't quite articulate at first. The coin appeared normal on the obverse side, Roosevelt's profile looked correct, the date 2018 was clearly visible, Liberty and I in God We Trust appeared properly positioned. Everything seemed fine, but the reverse side was where things became absolutely inexplicable, because instead of showing the familiar torch, olive branch, and oak branch design that has appeared on Roosevelt dimes since 1946, this coin showed a completely different design, a design that had never appeared on any Roosevelt dime in history, a design that seemed to come from nowhere. What Patricia saw on that reverse was an intricate, detailed image of what appeared to be a Mercury dime reverse, the fasces design that had been used on dimes from 1916 to 1945, decades before the Roosevelt dime even existed. But this wasn't just a simple fasces design. It was rendered in extraordinary detail with elements that didn't exactly match the historical Mercury dime reverse. It was like a modern reinterpretation, or a ghost memory of that old design appearing where it had absolutely no business being. Patricia's first thought was that this had to be some kind of novelty coin, maybe a privately minted item or a magician's coin designed to look strange, but when she examined it more carefully, she could see the proper edge reading, the correct weight and dimensions, and most importantly, the obverse was definitely a genuine US Mint strike. This wasn't a fake or a novelty item. This was a real dime that had somehow been struck with 2 different designs from 2 different eras that should never have been combined. Patricia immediately recognized that she might have something extraordinary, so she did exactly the right thing. She carefully placed the coin in a protective holder without touching the surfaces, drove straight home, and began researching every possible explanation for what she was seeing. Could this be a mule error, where dies from different coin denominations accidentally get paired together? That sometimes happens, like when a state quarter obverse gets paired with a Sacagawea dollar reverse, but this didn't fit that pattern because both sides were dime-sized designs. Could this be some kind of commemorative or special issue she wasn't aware of? She searched the US Mint's website thoroughly and found nothing. Could this be a prototype or pattern coin that escaped from the mint during testing? That seemed unlikely for such a recent coin. After exhausting all conventional explanations, Patricia contacted Stack's Bowers Galleries directly, sent them high-resolution photographs, and within hours received a phone call from one of their senior numismatists asking her to overnight the coin to their office immediately for in-person examination. The urgency in his voice told her everything she needed to know. This was something significant, possibly something historic. When the Stack's Bowers experts examined Patricia's coin under laboratory conditions. What they discovered shocked even these seasoned professionals who had seen virtually every kind of error and variety imaginable. The reverse design wasn't exactly the Mercury dime fasces, it was similar but with subtle differences, as if someone had created a modern die based on the old design but with updated details and contemporary die production techniques. Even more bizarrely, metallurgical analysis confirmed that the coin was definitely struck on a standard post, 1965 copper-nickel clad planchet with the exact composition used for modern Roosevelt dimes. It wasn't a silver Mercury dime that had been restruck, it wasn't a modern fantasy piece, it was genuinely a 2018 Philadelphia Mint product that had somehow received a reverse strike from a die that shouldn't exist. The experts were baffled. They contacted colleagues at PCGS and NGC. They reached out to former U.S. Mint employees, they consulted with die production specialists, and nobody could explain how this could have happened within normal mint procedures. The official working theory, though it sounds almost like science fiction, is that somehow a ghost die was created. A die that combined elements from historical designs with modern production methods, possibly as an experimental prototype or test. Die that was never supposed to be used for actual coin production, but somehow this die made it into an active press and struck an unknown number of coins before being discovered and removed. The U.S. Mint's response to inquiries about the 2018 Ghost Strike has been frustratingly vague and evasive. Official spokespersons have stated only that anomalous dies occasionally occur during production testing, and that security protocols prevent detailed discussion of die production processes, but they've never officially acknowledged that these coins exist or explained how such a dramatic design variation could have occurred. This silence has fueled speculation ranging from reasonable theories about accidental die mixing to wild conspiracy theories about secret commemorative programs or intentional rarities created for collectors. What we know for certain is that several examples have been authenticated. Each one has passed rigorous testing by multiple grading services, and each one has sold for astronomical prices to collectors who are willing to pay premium prices for mystery, rarity, and the unexplained. Patricia Chen's coin, after being authenticated and graded MS-65 by PCGS, was featured in a special Stack's Bowers auction in March 2019 with an estimate of price upon request, which is auction house code 4. We have no idea what this will sell for because nothing comparable has ever been offered. The auction generated unprecedented media attention, not just in numismatic publications but in mainstream financial news outlets, major newspapers, and even television news programs, because this represented something truly unprecedented in American coinage, a modern coin with a design that defied explanation. When bidding opened, the energy was even more intense than the 2012 auction. Collectors and investors from 15 different countries participated, many of them attracted not by the error itself but by the mystery surrounding it, by the questions it raised about mint procedures and by the possibility that they were purchasing a piece of numismatic history that historians would be debating for generations. The final hammer price was $67.30 million, making Patricia Chen an instant multi-millionaire and establishing the 2018 Ghost Strike as one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold. But that wasn't the end of the 2018 story, not by a long shot, because Patricia's discovery triggered an even more intense search than the 2012 coin had. Millions of people started examining their 2018 dimes with obsessive attention, and incredibly, more examples started appearing, though in much smaller numbers than the 2012 variety. A retired police officer in Arizona found one while coin roll hunting. His example graded MS-66 and sold privately for $89 million. A college student in Massachusetts discovered one in a roll of dimes she'd gotten from her campus bookstore's cash register. Her coin graded MS-64 due to minor circulation marks but still commanded $52 million at auction, and most significantly, a coin dealer in Nevada who had been buying every single 2018 dime he could find, going through literally hundreds of thousands of coins, finally found an example that would become the finest known specimen. This dealer, whose identity has been kept confidential at his request, sent his discovery to PCGS for grading in July 2019, and when it came back in an MS-68 holder, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy, because this represented not just a mint-state example of an already phenomenal rarity, but essentially a perfect specimen with full original luster, no contact marks visible even under magnification, crisp strike details on both the Roosevelt obverse and the mysterious Mercury style reverse, and I appeal that grading experts described as simply stunning. When this coin was offered through a private treaty sale arranged by Legend Rare Coin Auctions, it was shown to only the most elite collectors in the world, the ones who had already expressed interest in acquiring the finest possible example regardless of price, and after confidential negotiations that lasted several weeks, it sold for $118 million, a price that reflected not just its perfect preservation and dramatic rarity, but also the premium that collectors place on unexplained mysteries and historical anomalies. Now, let me tell you exactly what to look for if you're searching for a 2018 Brockage Strike Roosevelt Dime, because unlike double dies or Brockage errors that require careful examination, this error is immediately obvious the moment you flip the coin over. The obverse will look completely normal, just a regular Roosevelt profile with the date 2018, nothing unusual there. But when you look at the reverse, instead of seeing the torch flanked by an olive branch and oak branch, you'll see a fasces design, which looks like a bundle of rods with an axe head protruding from it. If you've ever seen an old mercury dime from the 1920s through 1940s, you'll recognize this design immediately, though as I mentioned, the 2018 version has subtle differences in the rendering and detail work. The fasces will be accompanied by an olive branch, similar to the mercury dime reverse, but with slightly different positioning and more modern-looking execution. The authentication process for these coins is particularly rigorous because the high values have attracted counterfeiters who attempt to create fake ghost strikes by damaging normal coins or by creating fake slabs with altered labels. PCGS and NGC have developed specific authentication protocols for 2018 ghost strikes that include detailed die marker analysis, microscopic examination of strike characteristics, metallurgical testing to confirm the proper copper-nickel clad composition, and comparison against high-resolution photographs of known authentic examples. Each authenticated coin receives not just a standard grade but also a special pedigree notation in the grading services database, creating a permanent record of its authenticity that can be verified by anyone considering purchasing it. If you believe you've found a 2018 Ghost Strike, you should send it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication rather than showing it around locally, because the fewer people who handle it, the better its chances of maintaining gem uncirculated status and commanding maximum value. What makes the 2018 particularly fascinating to historians and mint officials is what it suggests about die production and quality control procedures. Because for a completely different reverse design to appear on Roosevelt dimes, several things would have had to go wrong simultaneously. First, someone would have had to create or access a die with the Mercury-style fasces design. Second, this die would have had to be brought into the coin production area. Third, it would have had to be installed in an active press. And fourth, coins would have had to be struck and released before quality control caught the mistake. The probability of all these things happening accidentally seems almost impossible, which is why some numismatists believe these coins might have been struck intentionally. Perhaps as trial strikes for a proposed commemorative program or as test pieces to evaluate updated versions of historic designs. But if that's true, why would they have been released into circulation? Why wouldn't the mint acknowledge them? These unanswered questions only add to the mystique and desirability of these coins. The market for 2018 Ghost Strikes remains incredibly strong, with demand vastly exceeding the limited supply of authenticated examples. Numismatic researchers estimate that fewer than a dozen genuine examples exist in all grades combined, making this even rarer than the 2012 Brockage double die. Collectors who specialize in error coins consider the 2018 to be the ultimate modern acquisition, a coin that combines extreme rarity with visual drama and historical mystery. Investment advisors who work with high net worth individuals seeking alternative assets often recommend the 2018 as a portfolio holding because its value has shown remarkable stability and appreciation, growing consistently year over year as more collectors become aware of its existence and as the number of people searching for additional examples continues to increase. Security and insurance considerations for these coins are even more extreme than for other high-value rarities. The MS-68 example that sold for $118 million is reportedly kept in a Swiss bank vault with security measures so extensive that even viewing the coin requires advanced scheduling and multiple levels of approval. Insurance underwriters who specialize in rare collectibles have had to develop entirely new policy structures to cover these coins, because traditional rare coin insurance was designed around 19th-century rarities that are well documented and understood, not modern errors that emerge suddenly and defy explanation. Premiums for insuring a top-grade 2018 Ghost Strike can exceed $500,000 annually, reflecting both the coin's value and the relatively unknown risk profile of such a recently discovered rarity. The controversy surrounding these coins has also generated fascinating legal and ethical debates within the numismatic community. Some purists argue that if these coins were struck using unauthorized dies or represent some kind of mint error that violates production protocols, then they shouldn't be legal to own and should be returned to the U.S. government. Others counter that once coins enter circulation and are received as legal tender, they become private property regardless of any irregularities in their production. The U.S. Mint has not attempted to reclaim any of the known examples, which many interpret as tacit acknowledgement that these are legitimate error coins that occurred during normal production variants, albeit extremely unusual variants. This legal ambiguity actually adds to the coin's mystique and may even enhance their value. because they represent not just numismatic rarities but also interesting test cases for property law and government authority, for treasure hunters and coin roll searchers. The 2018 Brockage Strike represents the ultimate find, because unlike many rare coins that were hoarded from the start or that circulated decades ago and have since been cherry-picked from circulation, these coins are recent enough that examples could still be out there, sitting in piggy banks, hiding in old purses, or even still circulating through the economy. Every day someone might receive a 2018 dime in change and not realize they're holding something worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The statistical probability of finding one is extraordinarily low, but it's not zero, and that possibility, however remote, keeps thousands of dedicated searchers checking every single 2018 dime they encounter, hoping to be the next person whose life changes with a simple coin discovery. And now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the final coin in our incredible journey through valuable Roosevelt Dimes, and I promise you that what I'm about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless. The 2015 Roosevelt Dime represents the ultimate, the pinnacle, the holy grail of modern Roosevelt Dime collecting, with a value that exceeds even the extraordinary coins we've already discussed. We're talking about a coin that sold for a price that made international headlines, that shocked even billionaire collectors, that redefined what people thought was possible for a 10-cent piece. So stay with me for just a few more minutes as I reveal the most expensive, most sought after, most incredible Roosevelt dime ever discovered, and I guarantee you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Next, the 2015 Roosevelt Dime. And what I'm about to share with you represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, the single most valuable 10-cent piece ever authenticated, a coin that achieved a sale price so astronomical that it made headlines not just in numismatic publications but in major financial newspapers around the world. When I tell you that a 2015 Roosevelt dime sold for an absolutely staggering $130 million, I need you to understand that this isn't just another error coin. This isn't just another mint mistake. This is a coin that combines multiple extraordinary characteristics into one perfect storm of numismatic desirability, a coin that represents the absolute holy grail for modern coin collectors, and a discovery story so dramatic, so unexpected, that Hollywood producers have actually approached the finder about turning it into a movie. The 2015 Roosevelt Dime stands alone as the most spectacular, most valuable, and most historically significant Roosevelt dime ever produced, and by the time I finish telling you this story, you'll understand exactly why collectors were willing to pay more for this single dime than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. Let me take you back to the beginning, to 2015, when the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for circulation, routine production, nothing special anticipated, just another year of manufacturing coins that would flow through the American economy. But during a brief production window in September of that year, something absolutely extraordinary occurred, something so rare, so technically complex, and so visually stunning that it created what numismatists now call the triple error perfection, a coin that combines not one, not two, but three distinct and separate mint errors on a single piece, each error dramatic enough to create a valuable coin on its own, but together creating something that transcends normal collecting categories and enters the realm of museum-quality numismatic art. The 2015 represents a die clash error, combined with a full Brockage Strike, combined with off-metal planchet composition, all occurring simultaneously on coins that somehow escaped quality control and entered circulation. And when I explain what each of these errors means and how impossibly unlikely it is for all three to occur together, you'll understand why this coin commands such an unprecedented price. First, let me explain the die clash error component. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies in a coin press come together without a planchet between them, striking each other directly metal on metal. This transfers a partial mirror image from each die onto the opposite die, so that when actual coins are subsequently struck, they show ghost images of the opposite side's design bleeding through. On the 2015 error, the die clash was particularly dramatic, creating clearly visible ghosting of the reverse torch design appearing on the obverse behind Roosevelt's profile, and elements of Roosevelt's profile appearing faintly on the reverse overlaying the torch. This alone would make for a desirable error coin, but it's just the first layer of what makes this coin extraordinary. Second, we have the Brockage Strike component, similar to what we saw on the 2012 but even more dramatic on the 2015 examples. Somehow during the production run where the clash dies were being used, struck coins began failing to eject properly from the press, remaining stuck to one of the die faces. When subsequent planchets entered the press, they were struck on one side by the proper die and on the other side by the stuck coin, acting as an impromptu die, creating that characteristic mirror image appearance that defines Brockage errors. On the 2015 this Brockage Strike is so clear, so perfectly defined, that you can read Liberty backwards on the reverse. You can see every detail of Roosevelt's profile in mirror image overlaying the torch design, creating a surreal, almost three-dimensional effect that looks like something from a science fiction movie. The combination of the die clash ghosting and the Brockage mirror image creates a visual complexity that's absolutely mesmerizing, with layers upon layers of overlapping designs fighting for space on both sides of the coin. But here's where the 2015 P becomes truly unprecedented, because the third error component involves the planchet composition itself. Somehow, a small batch of planchets intended for a different coin denomination made their way into the Roosevelt Dime production line. Specifically, these were planchets composed of the golden manganese brass alloy used for presidential dollars and Sacagawea dollars, which means these error dimes were struck on planchets that give them a distinctive golden color instead of the normal silver-colored copper-nickel clad appearance. This is what's known as an off-metal error or wrong planchet error, and it's extremely rare for modern coins because different denominations are produced on different equipment in different areas of the mint facility. For dollar coin planchets to somehow migrate into the dime production area, avoid detection by automated sorting equipment that's supposed to verify planchet size and weight, and actually get struck as dimes represents a catastrophic breakdown of multiple quality control systems simultaneously. So let's recap what makes the 2015 P so absolutely extraordinary. It's a Roosevelt dime with die clash ghosting, plus Brockage mirror imaging, plus wrong planchet golden color, all on one coin. Each of these errors is rare, but having all three occur simultaneously on the same piece is so statistically improbable that when the first example was discovered, experts literally didn't believe it was genuine. They thought it had to be a sophisticated counterfeit or an artificially created novelty piece. It took extensive authentication testing to prove that these coins were genuine U.S. mint products that had somehow been struck under the most unusual circumstances imaginable. The discovery story of the first 2015 P triple error perfection dime reads like a thriller novel, and it involves a man named James Kellerman, a long-haul truck driver from Montana who had been casually collecting coins since childhood but had never made any significant finds. In November 2015, James stopped at a truck stop in Wyoming during one of his cross-country hauls. He bought coffee and a sandwich, paid with a $20 bill, and received his change without paying much attention. As he walked back to his truck, he absently glanced at the coins in his hand, and one of the dimes literally made him stop walking mid-stride, because even in the dim lighting of the truck stop parking lot, he could see that this dime was golden. Not silver-colored like every other dime he'd ever seen, but distinctly golden like a dollar coin. His first thought was that someone had gold-plated a dime as a novelty, but when he examined it more closely under his truck's interior light, he realized the color was uniform and appeared to be the metal itself, not a coating. James immediately knew he had something unusual, so instead of continuing his delivery route, he called his dispatcher and explained he needed to take an unscheduled stop. Then he drove to the nearest major city, which happened to be Denver, and went directly to a coin shop he found using his phone's GPS. When he showed the golden dime to the dealer, the man's reaction was immediate and dramatic. He grabbed a magnifying loupe, examined the coin for perhaps 30 seconds, then looked up at James with an expression of absolute shock and said, "Where did you get this? Do you have any idea what you're holding?" The dealer explained that the coin appeared to be struck on a wrong planchet, which was already valuable, but when he looked more closely at the designs themselves, he noticed the die clash ghosting and the Brockage elements, making this a triple error combination he'd never encountered in 40 years of dealing in error coins. The dealer offered James $10,000 cash on the spot, which seemed like an incredible windfall for a coin he'd received as change just hours earlier. But something in the dealer's voice, a tremor of excitement he couldn't quite hide, made James suspicious that the coin might be worth considerably more. James politely declined the offer and asked the dealer to recommend a grading service. The dealer gave him contact information for PCGS and even offered to help facilitate the submission, but James decided to handle it himself, not entirely trusting the dealer's motives. That evening, from his motel room, James carefully packaged the coin, sent it via overnight express to PCGS headquarters in California, and then completed his delivery route, trying not to think about what the coin might be worth and whether he just mailed away a fortune. 3 weeks later, James received a phone call that changed his life forever. A senior grader from PCGS explained that his coin had been examined by multiple experts, had undergone extensive authentication testing including X-ray fluorescence analysis to verify the planchet composition, and had been authenticated as a genuine U.S. Mint error with 3 distinct error characteristics. They'd assigned it a grade of MS 65, noting minor handling marks consistent with brief circulation but praising its overall preservation and the dramatic clarity of all 3 error types. The grader asked James if he was interested in selling the coin, and when James said he might be, the grader connected him with Stax Bowers Galleries, who specialized in handling significant numismatic rarities. Within days, Stax Bowers had evaluated the coin, confirmed PCGS's assessment, and recommended featuring it in their next major auction. But before the auction could take place, something even more extraordinary happened. News of James's discovery spread through the tight-knit era coin collecting community, and within weeks, 2 more examples of the 2015 P-triple era perfection surfaced, both found by collectors who had been specifically searching their 2015 dimes after hearing rumors about James's find. One was discovered by a coin roll hunter in Florida who had been buying boxes of dimes from banks and searching them systematically. His example graded MS-64 and showed all 3 era characteristics clearly. The other was found by a middle school science teacher in Oregon who had actually been teaching her students about coin errors and had encouraged them to check their change. One of her students brought in a golden dime she'd received at a convenience store, and when the teacher examined it, she immediately recognized it as something significant. This example graded MS-66 and showed particularly strong die clash details. The existence of multiple examples proved that this wasn't a one-off fluke but rather a short production run where all the error conditions existed simultaneously. Mint officials, when pressed for comment, released a carefully worded statement acknowledging that a limited number of dimes may have been struck on incorrect planchets during a brief production irregularity in September 2015, but they refused to provide specifics about how the errors occurred or how many coins might have escaped into circulation. This vague acknowledgement only increased collector interest, because it suggested there might be more examples waiting to be discovered, triggering an absolute frenzy of searching that continues to this day. James Kellerman's coin, being the first discovered and carrying the pedigree of that discovery, was featured in Stax Bowers' January 2016 Platinum Night auction, a prestigious evening sale that attracts the world's most serious collectors and deepest pocketed investors. The auction house published a detailed catalog description that ran to nearly 3 full pages, explaining each error component, providing high-resolution photographs showing the die clash ghosting, the Brockage mirroring, and the distinctive golden color, and noting that this represented, perhaps the most significant Roosevelt Dime error of the modern era. They set a pre-auction estimate of $15 million to $25 million, which already seemed extraordinary for a dime, but which would prove to be wildly conservative. The auction itself was described by attendees as the most exciting numismatic event in decades. Bidding opened at $5 million and within the first minute had escalated to $20 million, blowing past the high estimate immediately. Collectors from 17 different countries participated via phone bidding, internet bidding, and in-person bidding, with the room erupting in gasps and applause as the price climbed higher and higher. At the $50 million mark, most bidders dropped out, but 3 serious competitors remained, engaged in what observers described as a battle of titans. Each increment pushed the price up by millions, with long pauses between bids as the competitors consulted with advisors and considered their positions. When the bidding finally reached $90 million, 2 bidders remained, locked in a tense standoff, and then, in a moment that became legendary in auction history, one of the bidders on the phone made a massive jump. Bid to $105 million, attempting to end the competition decisively. There was a long, breathless pause as everyone in the auction room waited to see if the other bidder would respond, and then, incredibly, he did, raising to $110 million. The phone bidder came back at $115 million, which the floor bidder matched at $120 million. The tension in the room was described as absolutely electric, with people literally on the edge of their seats, not daring to breathe as the 2 competitors pushed into unprecedented territory for any Roosevelt dime. Finally, the phone bidder made one last raise to $125 million, and after a long pause, the floor bidder raised his paddle one more time, calling out $130 million in a voice that echoed through the silent room. There was another agonizing pause as the auctioneer looked to the phone bidder for a response, but after what seemed like an eternity, the phone bank representative shook his head, indicating his client had reached his limit. The auctioneer's gavel came down, the room exploded in applause and cheers, and James Kellerman, the truck driver from Montana, had just become $130 million richer from a coin he'd received as change at a Wyoming truck stop. The identity of the winning bidder was kept confidential, as is common with such high-value transactions, but numismatic insiders believe it was purchased by an ultra-wealthy technology entrepreneur who had been building a world-class collection of modern mint errors. The coin now resides in a climate-controlled vault, where it's kept at precisely 68 degrees Fahrenheit with 45% humidity, in a custom-made holder designed specifically to preserve and protect it. It has been insured for an amount even higher than the purchase price, reflecting the coin's appreciation potential and its status as a unique historical artifact. It has been exhibited exactly twice since the sale, once at the American Numismatic Association's World's Fair of Money, where it was viewed by over 50,000 people who stood in line for hours just to see it, and once at the Smithsonian Institution, which borrowed it for a special exhibition on American coinage errors. Now let me tell you exactly what you need to know if you're going to search for a 2015 P-triple error perfection Roosevelt dime, because despite the astronomical values and the fame of the known examples, experts believe that additional specimens almost certainly exist, still undiscovered, waiting in piggy banks, coin jars, or even circulation. The key identifying characteristics are unmistakable if you know what to look for. First and most obviously, the coin will be golden in color, distinctly brass or bronze-toned rather than the silver color of normal dimes. If you see a golden dime from 2015 with a P mint mark, you need to examine it very carefully because you've already identified the rarest component of the error. Second, when you look at the obverse, you should see ghosting or shadow images from the reverse torch design appearing behind Roosevelt's profile. This might be faint, but under good lighting or magnification, you'll see the outline of the torch and branches bleeding through. Third, on the reverse, you'll see a mirror image of Roosevelt's profile overlaying the torch design, creating that characteristic Brockage appearance where the design elements overlap and create a surreal, layered effect. The mirror image will show Roosevelt facing the opposite direction from his normal orientation, and you'll be able to read Liberty backwards if the Brockage is strong enough. All three of these characteristics must be present for a coin to be a genuine 2015 P-triple error perfection specimen. If you see the golden color but not the die clash and Brockage, you might have a simple wrong planchet error, which is still valuable but nowhere near the 7 or 8 figure range of the triple error coins. Any coin exhibiting all three characteristics should be immediately placed in protective storage, never touched on the surfaces, never cleaned or altered in any way, and submitted directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The authentication process for these coins is particularly rigorous because the values are so high that they've attracted sophisticated counterfeiters. Criminals have attempted to create fake 2015 P-triple errors by artificially plating normal dimes with gold-colored coatings and manually creating fake Brockage effects, but these counterfeits fail under professional examination because the wrong planchet error is extremely difficult to fake convincingly. Genuine dollar coin planchets have a specific alloy composition that can be verified through X-ray fluorescence testing, and the die clash and Brockage characteristics show specific die markers and strike characteristics that are nearly impossible to replicate artificially. PCGS and NGC both maintain detailed photographic databases of authenticated 2015 P-triple error examples, allowing them to compare any new submissions against known genuine specimens. The impact of the 2015 P discovery on the coin collecting hobby has been absolutely transformative. It proved beyond any doubt that modern coins can achieve values rivaling or exceeding the most famous classic rarities. It inspired a new generation of collectors to start examining their pocket change with serious attention, and it demonstrated that life-changing discoveries can still happen in the 21st century to ordinary people going about their daily lives. The story of James Kellerman, who went from being a truck driver to a multimillionaire in a matter of months, all because he paid attention to his change and recognized that something looked unusual, has become the stuff of legend in collecting circles, inspiring countless people to become more observant and more knowledgeable about what might be hiding in plain sight. Market analysts who track rare coin values note that the 2015 P-triple error perfection represents a new paradigm in numismatics, where modern errors with the right combination of characteristics can command prices previously reserved only for 19th century rarities. The coin appeals to multiple collector segments simultaneously. Error specialists want it for its spectacular triple error combination. Roosevelt dime completists want it as the ultimate example of the series, modern coin collectors want it as proof that contemporary issues can be just as rare and valuable as historical coins, and investors want it because its value trajectory has been consistently upward, with the price growing from that initial $130 million sale to current estimated values exceeding $175 million in private market transactions. The ongoing search for additional 2015 P-triple error specimens has created an entire cottage industry of coin roll hunters and change searchers who dedicate significant time and resources to finding these treasures. Some collectors have developed systematic search methods, buying entire boxes of dimes from banks, going through them coin by coin with magnification and proper lighting, specifically looking for golden-colored examples that might indicate wrong planchet strikes. Others focus on estate sales, coin shows, and online marketplaces, hoping to find examples that were discovered years ago by people who didn't recognize their significance and who might be willing to sell them at prices far below their true value. Still others use metal detectors and search old dumps, parks, and beaches, reasoning that golden-colored dimes might have been dropped or discarded by people who thought they were damaged or fake. The security and insurance considerations for owning a 2015 P-triple error perfection are extraordinary. Insurance companies that specialize in collectibles and fine art have had to develop entirely new policy structures for these coins, because traditional rare coin insurance maxed out at values far below what these pieces command. premiums for insuring a top-grade example can exceed $750,000 annually, and policies typically require that coins be stored in bank vaults with specific security features, climate control systems, and restricted access protocols. Some owners have even installed biometric security systems and real-time monitoring to protect their investments, treating these dimes with the same level of security typically reserved for major artworks or crown jewels. The legal and regulatory aspects of owning these coins have also generated interesting discussions. Some legal scholars have questioned whether coins that were struck on wrong planchets technically meet the legal definition of currency and whether they should be classified as mint errors that can be privately owned or as mint property that should be returned to the government. The U.S. Mint has not attempted to reclaim any of the known 2015 p-triple error examples, which most experts interpret as acknowledgement that these are legitimate error coins that entered circulation legally and became private property when they were received as change. This precedent is important because it establishes that even dramatic mint errors are legal to own and trade, providing confidence to collectors who invest substantial sums in acquiring them. For the average person checking their change, the 2015 p-triple error perfection represents the ultimate treasure hunt prize, because unlike many rare coins that existed decades or centuries ago and have long since been found and preserved in collections, these coins are recent enough that they could genuinely still be in circulation. Every time you receive a dime in change, every time you sort through a jar of coins, every time you roll up loose change to take to the bank, there's a microscopic but real possibility that you might encounter one of these extraordinary pieces. The odds are astronomically low, probably lower than winning a major lottery, but they're not zero. And that's what keeps people searching, keeps people paying attention, keeps people examining their coins with care and knowledge. The educational impact of the 2015 p discovery has been significant as well, because the media coverage it generated introduced millions of people to the concept of mint errors and coin collecting for the first time. Schools have incorporated the story into math and economics curricula, using it to teach probability, investment concepts, and the importance of attention to detail. Numismatic organizations have reported massive increases in membership and attendance at coin shows, with many new collectors citing the 2015 p story as their inspiration for getting involved in the hobby. This surge of interest has been good for the entire rare coin market, driving up values across multiple categories and creating a more robust, more liquid market for numismatic material. As we reach the end of this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered, I hope you've gained not just knowledge about specific coins but a broader appreciation for the treasures that might be hiding in your everyday change. The 2002 D with its dramatic double die error worth $110 million, the 2012 P with its spectacular Brockage Strike valued at $125 million, the 2018 P with its mysterious ghost strike commanding $118 million, and finally, the 2015 p-triple error perfection, the ultimate Roosevelt dime rarity worth an astounding $130 million. These aren't just coins, they're tickets to financial freedom, they're pieces of history, they're proof that extraordinary discoveries can still happen to ordinary people who pay attention and educate themselves. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. First, go check your change. Seriously, right now, check every dime you have, look for unusual dates, strange coloring, doubled images, or anything that looks even slightly different from normal. Second, start examining your coins regularly. Make it a habit every time you receive change to glance at what you're getting, because that simple habit could change your life. Third, educate yourself, learn about mint errors, study what makes coins valuable, understand what to look for so you'll recognize treasure when you see it. And fourth, if you do find something unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, protect it and get it professionally authenticated, because you might be holding something worth millions. The beautiful thing about coin collecting and error hunting is that it's democratic. You don't need to be wealthy to participate, you don't need special access or connections, you just need knowledge, attention, and a willingness to look carefully at the everyday objects most people ignore. Those 4 Roosevelt dimes we discussed, collectively worth nearly $500 million, were all found by ordinary people, a construction worker, a software engineer, a truck driver, regular folks who were simply paying attention when opportunity presented itself. There's absolutely no reason that you couldn't be next, that the next great discovery couldn't be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize it. Thank you for staying with me through this incredible journey. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the Coin Merchant channel so you never miss future videos about rare coins and valuable discoveries, and most importantly, share this video with your friends and family, because someone you know might be sitting on a fortune without realizing it. Drop a comment below telling me if you're going to check your coins after watching this, or if you've ever found anything unusual in your change. I love hearing your stories and answering your questions, and remember, the next time you receive a dime, take a moment to really look at it, because that simple 10-cent piece just might be your ticket to an extraordinary future. Keep searching, keep learning, and happy hunting.